Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're at episode 12. Now, I know that you don't have kids in your house that can't concentrate if somebody is breathing within 5 feet of them. I know that you don't have kids in your house that have a limit of 5 questions before they think, that's it, I'm done. I know that you don't have kids in your house that have sensory issues where it stops them from being able to concentrate, or kids with delayed learning like dyslexia or ADHD. But the rest of us have amazingly challenging, wonderful, complex, unique, and wonderfully made children in the mix. And it can make learning and homeschooling and teaching and parenting challenging. Ladies, I am here to introduce you to my friend Julie with Julie Naturally. And Julie is here because we share a similar heart. The heart, which is really cool. So I want to say right from the beginning that whether you have quote unquote normal kids, I'd love to meet you. Whoever you are, I would love to meet you.
Yeah.
But if you have normal kids, challenging kids, kids that are delayed, have sensory issues, what Julie is going to be sharing applies to all of us, all of our kids, all of our homes. And I'm super excited about it. So Julie, welcome. This is episode 12.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
thank
so
you.
excited.
I'm glad to be here.
I'm thrilled. After our phone call the other day, my heart was just like, oh, the moms need to hear this. And the moms are starting to pop on. So we've got Jennifer and Mariah and Christina.
Hello.
Welcome, everybody. I was so excited after our conversation because the core of what you're going to be sharing is so grounding and so it brings so much peace. But before we get into the goodies, a couple things. So anybody that pops on, if you're popping in to comment or say hello, you do have to give StreamYard the permission to say your names. Otherwise, it'll say Facebook user, and that's no fun. We want to know your name. The other thing is in the descriptions, there's a printout, there's a link that will give you access to the things that Julie is going to be sharing and the links to the other episodes that we've had. And I think that's all the housekeeping things. So Julie, I would love for you to share a little bit or a lot about yourself. So who are you? What's your universe like? Share.
I have 4 kids, and as some of you may or may not know, all of them have special needs. I know that sounds kind of like, 2 of them are grown. My oldest is 20, and my oldest, and it's a girl, and my oldest son is 18. And then I have 2 that I'm still homeschooling, and one will be 15 in a couple months. That's my second daughter, and my youngest is a boy, and he's 12. So I have ADHD, I have Asperger's, I have dyslexia, I have sensory issues, anxiety disorders. I have a number of different things going on in my house.
You won the jackpot.
Yeah, I add to that a bunch of food allergies and health issues. So it's been kind of a wild ride. It took a while to figure everything out. And but I have survived so far.
Yes. And
I've learned a lot and grown a lot, and the kids are thriving and have said that they just I've seen a lot of thriving comments lately, even just kids thinking back and like, oh wow, I remember when, and just really saying that they have enjoyed the journey, which I'm so glad that God helped me figure that out so that it would be like that. So,
now, have you homeschooled all along?
Yes. We homeschool from the very beginning.
Okay.
So, when my oldest was she was around probably 4.5 or so. She seemed to be kind of bored, and so we had already been thinking and talking about it. And so we started doing some things with her.
Right.
And yeah, so we just started doing some things with her, but it was an interesting ride because she learned to read early. She learned to read before she was 5, and that was kind of, it was all self-propelled. She just picked up some Bob readers and started sounding out books and was reading. And so we thought, ooh, let's get going. And but it was very curriculum driven with her, and she very quickly kind of showed signs that she was not enjoying that, and I was kind of exhausted. And the second one, my son, he as she got a little older, we brought him along for the ride, and well, he was having none of it. She would just sort of quietly kind of go along, but quietly resist, but he was like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. That's stupid. I'm not doing it.
Wow.
Yeah, he just was very, some would call willful, but I wouldn't call it that now. I would have a more pleasant connotation to it, but he was the one that brought me to my knees and was like, God, I don't know what to do with this kid. Every time I go to the bathroom, he runs away, and like, you can't find him.
Right. I have a couple of those.
My older girl, she would just kind of slide under the table or put in kind of a minimal effort. And by that time I had child number 3, and was a little, very little, and not homeschooling her yet, but he was all over. He refused to write anything. He just really struggled with the reading, and we didn't discover he was dyslexic till he was 9. That it was kind of like, it took a long time for me to kind of come to that realization that, okay, it's not a resistance. It's not a discipline issue.
Right.
I cannot do this issue. And by that time, I had gone through about 5 different curriculums, and we had him tested, and God said, just, you're not doing the tutoring. You're not doing any more of this curriculum stuff. You're going to leave him to me.
Wow.
And that was like, okay, Lord, you do it, because I can't do it. I've already tried. I cannot do it. I'm doing everything the world says I should do with this kid, and I cannot do it. And by that time I got a house full of kids, with issues, and
Right.
so that was the one. He just, it's like, what do I do with this kid? I'm tired of yelling at him. I'm tired of, making him stand in the corner. I'm tired of trying to bribe him. How do I teach this child?
Right.
How do I be a more gentle parent? How do I discipline but not lose his heart? And God showed me the way, and he led me to a more passion-driven way of teaching them that just sparked the curiosity, and just was more of a joy to me, and it strengthened our relationships too.
Which is so huge. And just not to interrupt at all, you and I both have dyslexic kids. My dyslexic is my youngest, my 5th one. And I was so busy with the other 4 that I just kept saying, oh, he'll eventually read. We'll just keep reading to him. I don't have time to worry about this. I'm teaching high school and college and essays, and we'll just keep reading. And then he didn't I didn't know he was dyslexic till he was 9 either, maybe 9.5. And he didn't start to read until he was after he was 10. And yet I didn't worry about it. But so anyway, we had that connection. But one of the things that I want everybody to really pay attention to is something that you're alluding to, is that what you were doing wasn't working. And so you switched, God had you switch what you were doing. You didn't medicate your child. You didn't have to send him away. You didn't have to change what your child was doing. Instead, the Lord had you change and pitch what you were doing. And I love this because if our kids aren't learning, it's a lot of the times it's because we're not teaching it properly or leading them properly or providing it. There's a lot of that in there. So I just want to make sure everybody's paying attention, because it's God led, but then he leads through us, right? Through the parents first.
Yes.
So it wasn't working. And then, so what kinds of things did you start to do? So, and we've got, Christina has a dyslexic dog. Hey, there's a bunch of dyslexic
Hi, Christina.
Yay. And I don't know about everybody else, but my dyslexic is the smartest one of the bunch. And I don't mean like, wow, he should have a big head. He's the one, he's the walking, talking encyclopedia. If you need to know where it is, what happened, the details of any book, any movie, anything, you ask him, because he got it all. In the middle of, redecorating the house and creating a disaster and stirring up strife with brothers, he collects all the data at the same. It's amazing to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, so here you are, God saying, leave him to me. And so what changed? So you go from curriculum driven to now more of an unschooling, life schooling type thing.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. And it was around that same time that we discovered that my younger daughter is Asperger's.
Okay.
There were subtle signs, and with girls, it's harder to detect. Because girls tend to naturally be more social, so they'll just kind of hang in the back and watch people and then kind of figure it out. But there are other signs, and I mean, if you get to know her now, you cannot tell. You cannot tell, but I mean, I know and I can tell.
Right.
But other people, if I mention it to them because she's working with them on something, they're like, "Really? I can't tell." So it's very subtle, but it did impact her learning. And then my younger son, he has the strongest sensory issues, and that really played into. But with what I started with the older children was much more of a passion-driven learning. Now, I don't neglect the core learning at all, but I try to present it in a way that draws on their strengths instead of just doing what's popular or just doing what I personally like, or having an overemphasis on sort of college-driven things, which is really a big deal,
Right.
especially in high school, of course. But trying to find alternative ways to still meet requirements, still get the core knowledge in, but respecting who they are, where they are developmentally, and trying to pull in those passions. So with him, even in high school, there was a lot of auditory and visual learning. So there was a lot of, we used a lot of videos. I did a lot of audiobooks. Still had to learn how to write, but he uses software to help him with that.
Right.
And things, like Grammarly and spell check and stuff like that. So he does use things to help. But I did lay off on the reading, and he did come up to a reading level. I wouldn't say it's necessarily high school or college level reading, but he can read a newspaper. He can read, job applications and things like that. So to me, he has accessibility to the same reading that everyone else does.
Right.
But he has, it's the same as what Becky was saying. He has this encyclopedic knowledge. It's almost like, he calls it's almost photographic in a visual sort of sense. Like he can be someplace or see something. He told me once, it's almost like a movie plays in his mind, where he
Yes.
can see everything that's going on and replay it, and he doesn't have to take notes when he's in a class environment. He just listens to the professor and the teacher, and he just remembers everything. It's amazing. So God does compensate in other areas. And it's been amazing to see what has happened since just sort of letting the Lord lead and see how the kids flourish and how they just come alive
Yes.
and are confident in who they are and how God made them. They have a strong sense of identity in this is what I'm good at, this is who I am, and this is where I want to go. And they really some of them, a little more than others, are very attuned to what the Lord is speaking into their life, but they all have that sense of this is who I am. And
Right.
that's
We all do, right? It's
yeah.
and it's so easy to compare our kids to the kid next door or the kid down the street, or the kids that you see or you hear about when you're reading on somebody's Facebook page or Pinterest page or blog page. Is that comparison is death to creativity and to our joy. And even something like dyslexia, which you hear all these negative connotations attached to it, but truly it's this gift of being able, like, they're the people that you want, like on the SEAL team. Those are the just on the SEAL team, because they can take 360 degrees of their environment in at the same time. And my first experience with somebody that had dyslexia, I was teaching in a classroom, and he was explaining that the way that his life works, when he goes to a grocery store, he walks down the middle aisle of the store, but he can tell you at any moment what's happening anywhere in the store.
Wow.
3 aisles over, this is happening behind me. And so he's like, for me, it's like it's system overload of taking in all this information at the same time. So when he was younger, when I had him, it was trying to deal with that massive amount of input coming into his brain. Brilliant child. But strap him to a desk and hand him a pencil. He was going to make you pay for that decision. No. Okay, so, but what I'm hearing is, number one, these things make our kids uniquely and wonderfully made. They don't make them challenged and defective and a pain in the, none of that. It's God knows exactly what he's doing, and he puts the kids in the right families with the right resources around them. So we can trust that. But then teaching from their area of passion, things that make their heart tick, is actually secret sauce.
Yeah.
It's secret sauce.
Yeah.
So that was one. And then what else? Like, where'd you go? So what does that mean to you in real life? Do you have an example? I didn't ask you that ahead of time, but do you have an example of teaching to a passion?
Well, let's see. I'll use a different kid because I don't want to just talk about one kid. I've got four, and they all have interesting passions. My youngest son is also a late reader. I wouldn't say he's necessarily dyslexic, but he came to reading late, and it went from sort of I would say borderline first, second grade reading to being able to read at a fourth, fifth grade level within a year.
Awesome.
So it just took off, but he did learn late. So for him, and he is kind of shies away from new things. It's a little challenging to introduce him to something new sometimes. which can be a little bit of an Aspie trait, but not necessarily. Some kids just don't like change.
Right.
And so for him, I had to expose him to different things in order to help him find what it was that he really loved. And where I started from was that he always had sort of almost an obsession with tiny creatures, like mice, especially. And so I thought, okay, tiny. And we went from tiny with that to the tiny miniatures type things at the Art Institute of Chicago. So we did that. And then from there, he started to become fascinated with other tiny things. And so then his brother's into blacksmithing. So it's just kind of funny, like, doing blacksmithing in your backyard. And
I love it.
Like,
I have 5 sons. My boys would be like, they'd be over that forge. They would love that.
So yeah, he built like a small forge in the backyard. My older son did.
Awesome.
So anyway, so he had kind of gotten some exposure there. And one day, I don't know where he found it from, but he started hammering some nails into little miniature weapons. So it went from, and they're like exquisite. Maybe I'll have him bring one over, but at any rate, they're only about like this big, and they're as detailed as a full-size sword.
Wow.
But they're like, like this big. Axes, swords, stuff like, guys like weapons,
Yeah, they do. And that's okay. God made them to be
they're mousy size. They're mousy size. Right. So he has a little box of those. So we encouraged that and got him some little jewelry making types of tools. And then we got him a little Dremel tool so that he could make other things that were tiny and make even finer adjustments on those things. And then recently, out of that interest, he started watching some YouTube videos on 3D printing with the pen. So then it went from that to 3D printing little creatures. Oh, he did bring some down for me. He heard me talking. Yay! He brought some down. So I don't know if...
oh my goodness.
So, this is as small as I mentioned. Like, so this is it.
Oh, that is really cool.
Back in my hands, you can kind of see.
No, you could see it when it was up there. That is really cool.
So how tiny they are, and then like he makes stuff.
Oh my gosh, that is cool.
But it's neat. So he learns a lot about medieval history with that. He's watched a lot of videos with that kind of thing. And then I mentioned that he had been watching about using a 3D pen. So then we got him the 3D pen, and so now he's started using that. So it's sort of built on each other. And so out of that, he's learned, how hot do you have to make how hot do you have to make the metal in order to be able to mold it? And he's learned, a lot about, well, thank you. So, and he's learned, like I said, about some history related to that. And, before that, with the whole mice thing, that kid is like a walking encyclopedia about critters, just little critters. So, just feeding the interest and then exposing him to related things. Exactly. And because he was interested in Lord of the Rings and medieval stuff and all that kind of thing, then I said, oh, you know what? I wonder if that might be a way to introduce him to geography, because, I feel everybody should know, like, if you don't know where you are, you're lost, so you should.
I agree. Oh my gosh.
I told him,
you
think about
should. My 20-year-old is a screenwriter and is studying the art of film. And that he was just telling me about the Lord of the Rings, the mass thousands amount of weapons and costumes that were created for the movie. And it was a huge number because the the armies were not CGI'd in. They were actual people, like in garb. And so anyway, little bit of a rabbit trail, but he could absolutely not just do on Etsy. There's like a whole business, you know, costume set designers and that kind of stuff. So you were saying that there's so much when you wrap in. So medieval history.
Yeah.
For the art of blacksmithing on a miniature scale.
Yeah.
I think it would be, there's finesse is the right word. Like he has to use finesse, which is, that's amazing to be able to do. I think one of the signs of intelligence is to be able to make things smaller. You know, my dad was always in, my dad was in computers when computers used to, I remember walking into data centers that were full buildings and that were this powerful, right? The same as your phone that we carry around. But the ability to make things small and intricate, actually, it's amazing. So I didn't mean to derail your thought.
No. So I use that to help develop an interest in geography. So there is a program, it's called Greg Travels, and he traveled all over the world and sent the kids, you know, videos and little trinkets and things and stuff like that. So that was, he went to places that had ruins. And I thought, oh, you know, ruins. This is something that will tie into something that he already likes. And I had showed him the intro video for it to see if he would be okay with me before spending the money. I didn't want to spend the money if he wasn't going to actually watch it. So, you know, so he had a sample. And so I said, okay, does this look cool to you? Do you think you would be interested? And he's like, yeah. So, okay. So, and he does enjoy watching some travel videos, you know, on like Channel 11, you know, PBS or something like that. So, so he got really into it, and he watched some of them over and over again, because there were ruins in Vietnam, and there were, you know, ruins in other parts of Asia, and then in Indonesia and other places. And then he also showed. He would interact with animals, and of course my son loves animals, and so it helped him to develop an interest in these other places, and he expressed some interest in visiting some of those places and it all sort of built on each other. And that's what I try to do, is say, okay, what is the core thing that this kid likes, and how can I springboard off of that into something else that I really would like for him to learn. And
applying skills on top of a passion. Right? Just laying skills on top of a passion. Huge. It's like we're educational ninjas, Julie. We're like educational ninjas. We're looking for what their passion is, and then we're sneaking in the skills. My dad used to call it cheating. I remember when he got my brother. I'm 8 years older than my little brother. And on his 13th birthday, my dad gave my brother 2 bicycles. And I said, Dad, you're crazy. He goes, watch. And over the next couple weeks, I went for a bike ride with my little brother. My sister went for a bike ride with my little brother. He'd have friends over, and they'd go on bike rides together. And I thought, oh, my dad knew what he was doing. He set up fellowship by giving him a 2-for-1. So building on passions, and just in the interest of, I want to make sure that we hit the 3. So you actually have, some of us have challenging kids. So we're still in that curriculum mindset. Maybe not me, but there's somebody out here that's still in that curriculum mindset. Because I don't care about curriculum I anymore. It's like I got too many. My hair's too gray underneath here to worry about a boxed curriculum. But what are some tricks? What are like 3 core tips for embracing teaching our kids kind of from the inside out? It's so you and I had talked about that, because there's your first thing has to do with I don't want to give it away, but my dad, I'm going to quote my dad again. He used to always say that creativity lives on the other side of boredom. And we live in a culture that boredom is almost outlawed, because everybody has
Yeah.
They're plugged in and wired.
Yeah.
So what are your 3 tips to start with that are just helping us educate our kids, challenging kids, normal kids, all kids, because they apply to everybody?
Mm-hmm. Well, okay.
Aw, bye.
That big boy. He's man now.
Bye.
Well, the first tip is to try to seriously limit video games and screens in general.
Yes.
And this was much easier when my older 2 were younger, because there wasn't any Facebook, there wasn't any YouTube, but to seriously limit that, because it's really easy to just sit in front of a screen, and as we all know, the time just goes, and it's really easy to use it as a crutch, and it just zaps creativity. It also has been linked to a lack of motivation. I looked this up on Google, but using some more scientific kinds of research tools, but it has been linked to a lack of motivation, and it's been linked to a lot of other health issues, and kids can get addicted. Yeah. So limiting the video games especially can really help. It's okay to just sit there and feel bored. Right. I like to tell my kids that something kind of similar to what you said is like, boredom is the mother of creativity. Yes. Is that, some of the best things my kids have ever created and ever done have been because they were bored. And yes. One of the things that I like to do to try to help them with that is to have tools and materials available for them to work with. So I've always had boxes of art materials. You had to be okay with mess. So I don't know. I've met some people just they won't keep things because it's really messy. But keeping great. Keeping a lot of creative materials on hand is really great. And then one of the other things, it doesn't cost anything, is to just recycle your recyclables. So keep all of those yogurt containers, those tubes, those little empty spools of thread, those weird plastic rings, and I don't know, just all those weird odd recyclables. Clean them and put them in a box and see what kinds of interesting things they come up with. My kid one time came up with a little cardboard candy dispenser. It was really amazing because he put all these holes in it, and he used the cardboard tubes to have like tubes almost like a marble run, and yes. It was really neat. So they come up with things.
My dyslexic son one time created, I kid you not, when he gets focused, oh my gosh. He's busy. So I'm busy teaching, and I turn around, and he had taken cardboard, and he had made the Ark of the Covenant out of cardboard. That wow. you'd pull the wings of the cherub, and you'd open it up, and it opened up, and inside he had his Bible inside.
Oh, neat.
He was like 6, and wow. You have got to be, because he had access to materials and time, and and I wasn't filling him up with, you need to do this, 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 and this. It's like, no, you're okay. Just recently he was sick and he was stuck in his room because we had them quarantined, and my husband was talking to him, and he said, buddy, are you okay? Are you dying of boredom? And he's 14 now. He's like, yes, I'm bored, but I know I'm going to come up with something in that boredom. So I'm okay with it. It's like, oh, yes, that's awesome.
That's really awesome.
Yay, Jennifer, I agree. All this is really cool. So Okay, so number one is screen time limit.
Yes.
It's not that video games or screens are bad. It's
No.
that they suck the creativity out of our kids' brains. And you and I talked about this. I don't know about you, but there's a limit in my house where my kids are happy. They're watching something. Happy, 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 not. They pass this magic line where suddenly they go from wonderful kids to not so wonderful kids. And then it takes hours to recover. It's like, okay, so limit screen time and give them materials, things that they can be creative with. And that's going to be different for everybody. It might be like I'm surrounded by Legos and I'm always surrounded by Legos, but Legos or something. So what was so screen time, limit that. And then what's another tip?
The second thing is with challenging kids, they often have something else going on. So there may be food allergies. Sometimes I noticed with my younger daughter that whenever she ate wheat, she would be kind of out of it. Like it was like she was only partly there. And of course, she would get rashes and stuff too. But not everything shows up as a rash or the allergic shiners that some kids get underneath their eyes. Sometimes it shows up as really grumpy. My youngest son, he too has a wheat allergy. And that I picked up on real early because every time he had wheat, he would become really aggressive and angry.
Really?
And just like he would just start like attacking people. It was amazing. One time, he'd be as sweet as pie, and then all of a sudden he would just become really aggressive. So sometimes there's a food allergy issue. Sometimes it's a sensory issue. The same boy, my youngest son, we learned that he had an auditory sensory issue. So I thought he was just being kind of this naughty kid every time we went to a theater or a museum or something. Like he would just run out, or he would just get all like growling and angry and start hitting people. And what it ended up being was that he just could not take the murmur of the sounds and the echoing and stuff like that. So he was overwhelmed in his senses and with his ears. So so sometimes there's things like that going on where they're not really being naughty. They're sending a signal that I can't deal with this from some other perspective. So those are a couple of other ways that kids can be having problems. Sometimes kids don't handle transitions well. We talked about this with going lots of places and saying, telling our kids that we're going to go to only a few places and then going more. This same kid is like that. You can only go to 3 places. After that, and I didn't realize this when he was real small, but when he was very small, he hated riding in the car, and he absolutely hated it. And there were times I had to pull off the side of the road because he would literally attack me in the car. He'd be pulling my hair and throwing things at me and kicking the seat and all kinds of things. And it was because he could not stand the in and out of the car, and even now he'll tell me, "No more places, Mom. I'm starting to feel bad." So just
which is important for us, because you called them triggers when we were on the phone, to know what our kids' triggers are. And then it's not that it's not a crutch. We're not pacifying them. It's being aware so that we can set them up for success. So that, because we want the wake behind our boat to be one of calmness and joy and peace as much as possible, rather than just this choppy, crazy, tumultuous water, because it sets us up for the next time. So if we have 5 meltdowns in a row, then we're kind of already anxious when we go out again, and the kids will feel that too. So, or whatever. So allergies, triggers. This is exactly why I taught my youngest son how to crochet, because another son couldn't handle, and we did lots of read alouds, like I said, because he couldn't read. So in order to make, but he's busy. So the requirement was all the kids had to stay in the same space. I didn't care if they build Legos or Lincoln Logs or whatever, they had to stay right there. They could color, they could draw. Well, I had one son that couldn't handle, he called it the dry sound. That sound of your hand across a piece of paper.
Oh.
He would stop him in his tracks, and then he would be done, and we'd actually hit the start over button and start over button. So I had to teach my youngest how to do something so that we could do read aloud together. He couldn't, the building was too loud for the child that couldn't handle the loud noises. The drawing was too, like, he couldn't handle the dry sound. So I taught Munchkin how to crochet. And it started with, you know, I'm going to teach you how to make the world's longest chain stitch in history. So that is all he needed to hear, was he was going to beat the record. And so anyway, so getting creative, identifying triggers, and then figuring out a way to make it happen so that it's successful. So we've got screen time, we've got allergies and triggers, and then what's the three?
The third thing is that for the most part, most of these kids that have these issues, we'll just, you know, say that it's ADD, Asperger's, dyslexia, all these kinds of things. Part of the reason why I learned that it was passion driven is that's how they learn best, is through their passion, because they're able to focus. Aspies get stuck in their, they kind of get stuck on their sort of, they call them obsessions, but I'll just say it's a very strong interest, you know, where that's, everything has to be about that. And then ADD kids, they get into a hyper focus. And so that's, if you're able to access the hyper focus, they can do tremendous things.
Yes.
So, but it has to be relevant. So the third tip has to do with making it relevant. It has to be connected to the way that they're actually going to use it. So you don't divorce the learning from the environment in which they're actually going to use it. So it's sort of like just-in-time learning sometimes, like you're learning it as you're doing it. Learning how things work as you're actually, you know, doing the work.
So physically changing a tire on the car, because you're practicing changing a tire on the car, not watching a video on how to change a tire on a car.
And, you know, and the same for all other things, you know. I saw it as well, especially in science. This is really really easy and great to do, is like, well, you know, I read a textbook or, you know, a book of any kind about plants or about animals or about, you know, stars and things. Go out and actually grow things, see things, raise animals. And that's what we did. There was a point, I think I had 10 pets, I swear. Oh my gosh. It's really crazy. It's like we had a frog and we raised mealworms into darkling beetles.
Wow.
You know, we did the whole garden thing too, and compost and all this stuff. Like, but they loved it, and nobody could fool them because they had done it, and they knew, you know, what it really was, and the learning is much more solid, and it doesn't have to be transferred from a book into the reality of it, or from a video into the reality of it. It's learned within the context that it's actually used, and especially for Aspies and kids with ADD, that's really important because they really have a hard time transferring skills from a paper to how it's actually used in real life.
Right.
It's almost like it has to be retaught as a completely new thing.
Right.
So
because what you said, they're not fooled. Their brain is all about understanding and applying. So if they don't see the relevance or the practical, this is how, why, when I need this skill, whatever that is, like you were talking about fractions and, you know, how in cooking, it makes perfect sense. Quarter cup plus quarter cup is half a cup. But if you show the worksheet, 1/4 plus 1/4, it's like, well, I don't understand. Why is the bigger number, you know, why is the bigger number smaller than this? It's like, I don't know. So they're not fooled. So, but again, this applies to kids on the full learning ability with all different kinds of learning styles, that the closer we get to touching the real thing, hearing the real thing, and experiencing the real thing, the closer we're going to get to their heart and their passion, and they're going to be all in the learning experience. You know, it's not about the worksheet and the little bubble and, you know, the little A+ on the top of the paper. That really is not the way it is. It's about getting your hands dirty because you're gardening, or, you know, playing an instrument and hearing the melody go, or figuring out how to do by scale. I'm so impressed with your sons. There's so much in there of taking something that's this big and then making it this small and having it be all proportionate and functional. I mean, that's fantastic. It's fantastic. So, in kind of summary, as I knew we could talk a long time, so here we go. So challenging kids, because there are a lot of people. Let me just check and see if anybody had any questions. This is where I reveal my age and I take my glasses off because I can't read. Okay. So let's see. Everybody was saying definitely cool. I know I saw a question. Oh, it was about screen time. Any tips on slowly reducing time to reduce like screen time in general? I know. Well, what would you say?
So if they're spending a lot of time, and it depends how old they are. If they're an older kid, you could talk to them a little bit about, well, you know, I notice you've been spending a lot of time in front of screens. Don't your eyes hurt? You know, are you and you can talk about, well, you know, are you having trouble sleeping? And also talk about some of the other consequences. You know, you seem to be getting kind of angry, and, you know, I don't see you very much. I really would like to spend more time with you. You know, why don't today we, okay, so 5 and under. Okay, well, then with that, it's a little easier, I think, because you can say, and instead of the screen, you can offer them other things to do. Say, you know what, today we're not going to watch that. You know, I'll let you watch for an hour or half hour, or whatever you want to decide. You know, they get some, but say, well, you know, today we're gonna go and do this other thing together, and that's something that they think is fun too, so that it's drawing on their desire to want to do it, but it also effectively reduces the time. Our limit when my kids were young was, you can have either 1 hour of TV or 1 hour of on the computer. And I never had a system. So it was one or the other. And then if they didn't do their chores, or they were not very cooperative, and I said, well, you know, you're not helping me. You're not doing your responsibility. So I don't know if you get that today. And so then it's a privilege. It becomes a privilege and not a right.
Well, and I just wanted to apologize. I kind of went like this, and I kind of I had a heart check. Like, I wasn't saying, "Ooh, just turn it off. It's that easy." I have 5 sons. My second son was born with a benign tumor by his eye.
Oh.
And when he was younger, he had lots of surgeries and a lot of need to stay physically calm. And so we did the whole pendulum swing. 0 TV to, sure, you can watch another movie. Sure, you can watch another movie. Sure. So I did the whole, like, I've done 0 to, well, let's just have the TV on all day. And so whatever your family is, you know, it's okay for you to own it, right? I mean, I taught my kids to watch TV. I took the car seat and I put it in the middle of the living room and I snapped them right into the car seat so that I could edit. I could work with my older kids. I'd put my babies in their car seats so that they wouldn't paint my back.
Wander around.
It's like half an hour of baby Mozart. However, I mean, this is full. I am not, perfection's completely overrated. I heard something though, a parenting tip, probably when I had 3 or 4 kids, and that was that you set your kids up for success. So if you want to allow them to watch a half an hour show, then right at the beginning, you're prepping them for, after this show, this is what we're going to do. But before the show is over, mommy's going to come in and let you know that it's almost done. Is that okay? And have that little conversation. And then I would always purpose to sneak in, pop the TV off just for a second and say, there's 2 more minutes left of the show. Remember, after the show, this is what we're going to do. Yes, mommy? Yeah. And then they would say, yes, mommy. And I do that with everything. It's time to clean up. It's almost time to go. It's almost time for bed. 2-minute warning. It's for us, it was magic to know what it was I was allowing them to do, to be resolved that I was only going to let them watch whatever I was going to however many things I was going to let them watch, and then to help them back out with dignity, because they get so wrapped up in the story, they get so zoned out when they're watching their thing, that we really need to realize it takes a little bit to make that transition, right? From this make-believe tunnel vision, I'm just staring at a screen, to snapping back into putting my shoes on to go out the door or whatever we're asking. So yes, the 5-minute warning greatly helps. So that totally helps. Yeah. So that was it on the questions. So that I saw. So
transition thing too. Yeah. That helps with the transition too.
It does.
The transition easier because they know what's coming and they can prep for it.
And I learned that from, I was in a parenting class, and the husband-wife team that was teaching, it was the husband that actually, he had his work crew was a prison crew, literally grown men that were doing outside yard work. And so he said, when he applied that to the grown men, okay, guys, break time's almost up, he had 0 resistance from these things. But when he would just ding, now it's time to get back to work, he would see them resist, like there wasn't time to transition. And he shared in that parenting group, look, as adults, we need that too. It's almost time. That time is almost over. And it just, he saw it in a practical way, even though they were prison inmates. And our kids are our children and beloved, they need that transition too. So just having an awareness of what's going on in our home or in our own life helps. And I fail at that sometimes too. So, but okay, so we've got our 3 professional tips from Julie. So understanding that screen time sucks away creativity and can suck away the precious time of them pursuing their passions. Giving them materials that they can work with, whatever's appropriate in your home, whether it be recycling recyclables, PVC piping, options of material that they can sew, and crochet or glitter if you're brave, those things. The second tip was learning about things like food allergies and triggers so that we can be more aware of what's going on with our kids. And then the third thing is that a lot of times these kids, as much as they can't handle some hands-on situations, they need the hands-on situations to learn. So it's kind of this catch-22. So giving them relevant hands-on materials to learn. Is that that was all the three? So before everybody clicks out, so when you follow the link, this is one of the first pages in there. You're going to want to click. See, my camera's backwards. When you go to Julie's blog, Julie has this thing called, taking my glasses off again, A Complete Guide to Christian Unschooling, Natural Learning. And so you get that for free by clicking here and then going to her blog. And but then, Julie, before we go away, I wanted you to tell everybody about your book.
So this is my book.
Yay!
This is my book.
Okay. Yay.
So this book tells my story in a little more detail, but it also has chapters on teaching children under age 8, teaching children 8 to 12, teaching teenagers, different record keeping styles that you can use with a more unschooly, relaxed type of learning. And it also talks about motivation and tapping into intrinsic motivation, which was some of the things we were talking about today. So it talks about that in a little bit more detail also. So this book is available in any bookstore. You can get it from any bookstore or online in any bookstore.
I'm nervous now. I didn't know that I had a famous person online. So excited.
Or if you want to get it from me, I have made available through the link at the bottom there. If you go to that link, you can get a bundle, which is the print book. And I have a set of 4 learning templates, which are one is a record keeping type template that is an assessment tool for kids 8 and up. And then the other 3 record keeping natural learning templates are for keeping track of that natural learning you're doing. So one is appropriate for if you are using some curriculum as like a core type thing, and then you're adding in some interest-led learning. So one is for that. The other one is for if you're using primarily an interest-led approach and tracking how those things fit into the different subject areas, so that you can have it all compiled together in just the weekly sheets for the end of the year, and you don't have to sit and remember or think about that. And then the third template is a specific style of of natural learning, which basically it's a big question. So, and it gives guidelines of that. There's also a short video that's included with that to help you understand how to use the three of those templates plus the record keeping. And then it also includes a half-hour workshop on how to create your own science boxes. So we talked a little bit about, the art supplies and the, the recyclables and stuff like that. So it talks a little bit about how to create your own science boxes, which each has different materials or tools for the kids to explore different science topics on their own.
Okay.
So that's also included in that bundle.
And this costs just like $594, right?
No. So you can get the book and the 4 templates with the video thing and the half-hour workshop, and together it's $22.99 through that link. Are you? Hey, I see you. I see you.
Oh my God. Yay. We're almost done, kiddo, I promise. So yay.
So yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. That I have me some of those people in my house too.
Got to be in action, you know.
Yay. Okay, wait, show your face. Just kidding. Hey, kiddo. Okay, so, yeah, I see you. Yay. So in a nutshell then, so these are amazingly valuable resources. So the free printable that just comes from being a part of your community. And I just joined your little corner of the internet recently, and I've been very encouraged by the emails that come to my inbox. So it's a good place to be. It's a happy corner of the internet. So I like that. But I love I just have one question about your bundle. When you say print book, do you mean it's an ebook or it comes to the mail where I can mark?
No, so you when you buy the bundle, it's through PayPal, so you're paying through PayPal, and PayPal of course will give me your address, and you will get an actual physical copy of the book.
Okay, so, very cool.
Yeah, and there's no shipping charge added, so it's all together. Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Well, when I think back on all of this, first of all, I wish that I had found you. Well, you probably weren't born yet, but when my kids were little, just kidding. I wish I had this kind of information back when my kids were little, because I got more and more relaxed. By the time I had all 5 of mine were delayed readers, all 5 of them were delayed talkers or writers or whatnot. By the time my baby came, he was the most delayed out of everybody, because it wasn't that he was delayed. He was just on a different mission in life than what I had written down in my lesson planner. He was born determined to do this life on his own terms. And so there's been a little bit of fun, like learning how to do that. But these are the types of things that really will help empower moms to relax. Our kids don't have to fit in a nice little black and white box. It's okay that they're each unique and wonderful. And so much stress comes from trying to take that perfect creation of who God intended them to be and to squeeze them into a mold of sitting at a table, reading for 5 hours a day, completing, half an inch of worksheets and assignments, doing 54 problems in their math book. It's like, it just doesn't work. For some kids love it. Like I was that little girl that loved school. You could not give me enough paper to do. I just loved it when I was little. My boys, not so much. Not so much. It's like, Julie, thank you. I don't see any more questions. So I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for coming. Such an encouragement and a blessing. So thank you very much for joining. Don't go away. I'll be right back, Julie. Okay. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. I wish that I had friends like Julie when I was younger, a younger homeschooling mom. I can tell you that now, when Julie and I spent our time on the phone before we talked a few days ago, and these types of things, the limiting screen time, giving your kids access to creative materials. I forgot what the second one, giving your kids access to creative materials. There it goes. Understanding what triggers them, and then making things hands-on and applicable to their passions and interests. These are magic buttons for reaching our kids' hearts, because when we are approaching their education from that standpoint of understanding what makes their brains tick, we not only educate them academically, but we reach their hearts and we build relationships that are tighter and more closely knit together with our kids. We see them. We don't see a little checkbox on our to-do list. So I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for joining Julie and I. Thank you for engaging, whether you're seeing this live or whether you're watching it back on a replay. I love bringing people like Julie out here and talking about specific areas of passion. I've learned so much from each and every one of these ladies. It's been amazing. So there will be another interview on Monday. Again, I forgot to check to see who's coming on, but it'll be great. Thank you all for joining in. And if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them down. Both Julie and I will be, we get notifications if you have any questions or concerns, or you just want to say hey. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you soon. Bye.